I've discovered a new variation of straw man argument used by proponents of critical race theory and all of its offshoots. I don't really have a name for this one, and I didn't plan to make content today. I'm not even wearing my proper glasses, so if I look a little glassy-eyed, it's because these are not my computer glasses, and I can't really see very well. Everything's a little blurry. But I was just watching this video by Christopher Paslay, which you must go watch. This is like your assignment, because it will give you a window into this new kind of straw man argument people are using. You've probably seen it or heard it and you didn't really know what to think of it. Maybe you initially thought it was strange wording, but you just didn't know what it meant. Kind of like this title of a webinar. He goes into what it is, and I'm not going to explain it in detail because he does a great job in the video, but it's about teacher education, a webinar for teachers. But it's the kind of thing where somebody throws out a claim about why something is, goes hand in hand with critical race theory's whole argument, which is that everything I don't like is racism. And I'm oversimplifying, but really it comes down to that. It's not a question of whether racism exists. It's the default position in America. And it's not a question of whether racism existed in any given interaction. It's just a question of how and to what degree. And if there was a white person involved in the interaction. If there's no white person involved in the interaction, then I suppose we would look at which of the two people was the most white adjacent, I suppose. Maybe you would do that. Which one was showing the most whiteness? In other words, if one had certain expectations of the other, but they were both black, then maybe that person was more white. That's usually what it comes down to is, anytime you place expectations on somebody, that's your whiteness talking. Okay. So, and I know that sounds horrible, but if you break it down, that's what they're saying. If you make demands, if you hold people to standards, if you tell them you were late or why didn't you get the right answer or any of these things, it's like, oh, there's your whiteness talking, which makes you think, so you're saying that it's black to be late? It's black to not get the right answer? Like, what? Why aren't people insulted and have a problem with this? I don't know. I don't have these answers. I'm not a critical race theorist. But the kind of straw man I'm talking about is the one that starts off with a claim about anyone who disagrees with them. And it's not always because you're a racist, but you have to kind of find that. You have to find that. They'll identify a problem for you. And then you're left to wonder, well, why? Why does that problem exist? Why does that problem exist? And they'll just go through the whole discussion of a thing and, what it is and the shape of it and the size of it and the color of it and all the things about it and, what we need to do about it, which usually involves tearing something down, destroying something, or just adding more not whiteness to it. And what it comes down to is the why. The reason is because you're racist. The reason you do all these things is because you're racist. The reason things are the way they are is because racism. And they never provide any evidence. Never. There's never any evidence. You don't have an example of like this panel convened to discuss what we should do about X. And they all said, we don't want to do X because we don't like black people. I mean, and that would be super overt. They can't even point you to something in the far distant history and say, look at the conversation that Will Reusch. He specifically mentioned the drug war, for which there is specific, explicit information about who was racist, when they were racist, what they did and said that was racist, how the policies behind the drug war are therefore racist because they were explicit. And he wasn't even allowed to discuss it. So this straw man also rests on the idea that whatever evidence you bring to bear against the straw man, even if it supports the notion that racism is present, just not the way they think, is ruled out. That's part of your racism. The fact that your argument wasn't their argument, that just shows your racism. So there's Will saying, what about the drug war? Well, see, that you're just assuming all black people use drugs. And it's like, brain cramp. How did you get that from my reasoning? Like, I'm agreeing with you that racism exists in certain systems, this being the justice system and the legal system. And here's an example of it. Like, we're literally on the same page that there's a system that's been infused with racism since the beginning. And you're telling me I'm wrong to bring that up, that my even bringing that up to agree with you is itself racist because it's not the argument you would have made. Apparently, I'm not supposed to make discrete arguments. And the only thing I can think of is the reason for this straw man, the purpose of it, like all their other arguments, or their fallacious arguments rather, is to just shut you up. They don't want to have an argument with you. The only option you have is agree with them, whatever they say. And what they say is going to be giant blanket statements. Everything is bad because racism. That's all you need to know. Now let me do what I want to do. But the world doesn't work that way. What you want to do is just run around identifying racism. It doesn't seem like you're interested in solving problems. Will wants to solve a problem. I identify racism in the drug war. It's because of this and this and this policy. Let's dig in, get our hands dirty, and deal with this policy and unravel this policy. He gave a fantastic analogy, and I hope he doesn't mind that I'm going to repeat it here. His analogy was that you have, a project, something you want to do to fix the country. You want to fix the country. They come in. Actually, they don't even come in. They tell you they're going to demolish the house, and somewhere off in the distance, they have some engineers who'll come in after it's completely demolished and wiped away, and, we'll rebuild a new house. We're not going to show you any plans, tell you what it's going to cost, anything like that. We just trust us. We're tearing down your house, and someday we'll build you a new house with some people who might be trained to do that. And Will says, in the absence of really explicit plans for how you're going to do that, since I need to live somewhere, could we just bring in some contractors and some renovators to renovate the house? Could we go in and identify what's wrong with the bathroom and what's wrong with the living room and the kitchen, and kind of like, if we have to gut one particular section, I personally vote public education, but that's me. But if we can, if we just gut that section, put in some new cabinets, maybe, whatever, or maybe we decide we don't really need that big a kitchen. Maybe what we really need for our needs is something kind of different. Maybe what we need is like more bedrooms or a bigger living space or whatever, but can we renovate so we still have somewhere to live? No, we're tearing it down. We're demolishing it. Just throw it away. And we'll tell you what we're going to do later. So anytime you bring in any kind of argument, they come back at you with, you just don't want to fix it. You just don't want to do this. It's just that you don't want any black people around. You just don't want, and it's like straw man on top of straw man on top of straw man. And then even when you give a specific, no. So, but this video is so great because the straw man is so out front that you miss it. You completely miss it. Chris spent spends the whole video explaining how he dug. He's like, what? I want to see, where's the evidence of it? What is this title of this webinar? Why is it the way it is? Where's the I don't understand where they get this impression. No evidence. Just negative outcome we don't like. Ergo, it must be because everybody's racist. That's like, I don't need to tell you why. I don't even need to tell you how I came to this conclusion. I just see this thing and there it is. So be careful, because you'll think that someone has proven their argument because they put it right out front and center. The reason this is so is because people don't want it to be different. The reason that there aren't enough black people in STEM is people don't want them there. The reason that we don't have enough, black musicians is because people don't want them. The reason that it was because of it. And then, you're like, oh, really? There must be tons of evidence for that for you to make such an outrageous claim. And you forget they never came back around and gave it to you. So you're like halfway down the path of what what we need to do is get rid of blind auditions. And you're like, what? Wait, what? Isn't a blind audition the exact way you would avoid racism? Because people don't know who it is? Nope, need to get rid of them because we need to proactively pick people of color. That's what they say. It's not my language. Black people. Okay? That's gonna be racist, or easier for actual racists to avoid choosing black people. I don't see how that really solves the problem. And the reasoning for this is because obvious the reason we don't have enough is that we don't want them there. It's because of all the racism. And it's like, but they're blind auditions. How does that work? So you see, they avoid these uncomfortable conversations, the ones they claim they want to have, but they really don't want to have. They avoid those questions, the obvious questions that say, this doesn't really make sense. You know the little meme with Britney Spears where she goes, that's all I see in my head is like, because every time they say something, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But we don't have to have that conversation when we're critical race theorists because we just assert that a thing is so and leave everyone to assume that because we are impressive academics with lots of letters after our names, that we must have the evidence somewhere, and we never circle back to ask for it or to have it shown to us. Or if we ask for it, they're like, we'll circle back. We'll circle back. We'll get back to that. We'll get back. Hold that question. Hold that thought. The important thing is for you to understand that racism is everywhere. So therefore, if there is a consequence that is negatively impacting Black people, it is because of racism. But can you show? No, I don't need to show you. If you need to be shown, if you're telling me to be shown, that's evidence of your white fragility. And if you come back with an actual example, like, oh, you mean like the drug war? How racist of you. See how that works? We just straw man. I feel sometimes like it's sort of a variation of Children of the Corn. You know, I don't know if you saw that movie, but there's this corn and there's like demons that live in the corn and like, you don't know where they are, but you sense that they're there and you don't want to go walking out in the cornfields. And the only people who can walk safely in the cornfields are the little children. But if you're an adult, don't go near there. They're children of the corn, right? I feel like it's like that, except instead the corn is just lots of straw men. They're like all the little scarecrows and they're just lined up in a little army like this out in the field of corn, where the children of the corn move safely about, the straw man like waving in the breeze. It's their little army of straw men. And you go walking through it wondering if one of them is going to reach out and grab you. And they look super creepy, but they actually don't really move. And you could walk through if you wanted to, but it's intimidating nonetheless. So you stay on the fringe and you avoid it. And you let the little children of the corn keep telling you that these straw men are very powerful. They will come to life and they will strangle you. And, don't do that because it's a lie. It's fake. Anyway, that's my little had to jump on and say something, but go watch this video because it will subtly, quietly blow your mind. All right. That's all I had to say. Hope you're having a great day. And as always, like, comment, share, subscribe, and join my locals because we have fun over there. Take it easy.